So as I mentioned before, public-private partnerships are different to a straight sponsorship. They're about bringing people and organisations into your project, and by doing that, far more money can be leveraged. It's amazing the amount of money that, as Lawrence mentioned, has been much more difficult in the last 2 years, but it is amazing how much money can be extracted out of central government and corporates in a recession. It's how you package your proposal to them and how you include them in the partnership. And the best time, I guess, in maintaining them, which I've mentioned before. So there are some upfront costs to public-private partnerships. Engage your professionals. Realise that you're going to have to spend time on relationship management. Understand that QS reports, feasibility studies and project planning needs to be done, needs to be robust. Government lobbying is really important, and that's something that I've been involved with a lot of the projects that I'm working on, and that needs to happen quite quickly at the start of your project. Understanding what the government might expect from you in return for their money and what the government can add to your project. On the other hand, understanding what you can offer the government, and so understanding how that relationship would work is really important. And that's the same with corporate approaches. Like I mentioned before, corporates don't want their logo on the side of a building. They want to have meaningful relationships. They want to be part of strategy groups. They'd want to be part of having an annual sponsorship event where they would come along and network and those kinds of things. It's more than just a brand. So you need to come up with a comprehensive package, I guess, if you're asking them to come on board for $1 million. That sort of level they want, quite detailed understanding of what they're going to get. The other thing is timing is really important. You need to make sure you've got your ducks lined up in a row. And there's some things you need to pay for quite early on, but what councils tend to do is they tend to engage architects, which are very expensive early on. Don't do that. There's no need to spend that money on architects. They should come far further down the track. There's a lot of things you can do before you start getting into detailed design. So it's understanding where you best spend your money at the beginning of the project. It's really important. Start your political lobbying early and make sure that you continue on with that and you keep your local MPs and ministers that are relevant in the loop on that. The other really important thing is keeping the community on board, keeping them up to date with where the project's at, consulting with them. There's various easy, cost-effective ways in which you can do that. I've got some case studies of projects that I've been involved with that I wanted to talk to you about. The Hawke's Bay Opera House, $12 million project. Hastings District Council contribution was $4 million for that project, so we raised $8 million from other sources. Government, corporates, privates, gaming trusts, community trusts and community fundraising. McLean Park in Napier, Council's contribution to this was $4.5 million. The rest was raised externally, including $1 million from a corporate sponsor. Again, same funding split. The Waipawa Town Hall, which is in a tiny little community in central Hawke's Bay of about 13,000 people. It's only a $3 million project. It's virtually fully funded. Council put in $400,000. We've leveraged the rest from government and corporates, which is great. So for a small little council like that has no money in their budget to upgrade community facilities, they've managed to, for $400,000 investment, to have a very smart town hall. So here in Taupo, I think you have an opportunity because if you're considering building something such as an ice cube, it has national significance, particularly within the North Island. So I think that's certainly regional and national significance, which makes it different from funding football fields and theatres and netball courts. Here in Taupo, you would have access to gaming trusts. You'd have to develop quite detailed corporate sponsorship packages. I guess there's a potential to talk to iwi. I'm not sure where you're at with that, whether you've done anything like that. Yes. Obviously government, the Significant Projects Fund, Lawrence said it had been cancelled. It actually hasn't been cancelled. It's just this year it's been put on hold for the Rugby World Cup, so it's likely to be reinstated next year. So that funds significant national projects through lottery funding, which is great. So you also have the ability to tap a lot of the same sources that have been used for other projects. And that's it from me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Jenny, well, thank you very much for that. It's really exciting, another really exciting project that is nice to be involved with, especially us here as councillors, I'm sure. So I'll just open it up and Councillor Downard.
Thanks, Jenny and Scott and Rob. I'll have the pleasure of being in the last council and had a bit of history with what the Trust has been doing. Just in this new triennium, we have got 7 new councillors in here, and we've had a lot of fantastic things shown to us, and with the cycling of excellence bid and stuff like that. And I suppose one of the questions that will be on their minds, that's on my mind, does that cross over into this, where that could be in one place, like we've been shown things that could happen with an indoor velodrome. Have you been seen all that, and what's your feeling on that, rather than all these different separate entities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something I probably should have covered in my introduction. But we have been involved with the Cycling Centre of Excellence, because obviously initially there was the potential to both to be competing for the same money, and that was never going to happen. So we needed to talk, and we're basically doing everything we can to assist with the Cycling Centre of Excellence. And if they're successful, then there's a good chance that, there's a potential for them both to be successful, if you like, the ice rink and the cycling centre. But what we're doing is we think it's prudent to continue on down the path that we started a couple of years ago, just on the basis that if we're not successful with the cycling centre, we don't want to have wasted 6 months. Which is why we're in front of you today, which is why we're carrying on, just in case the cycling centre is unsuccessful.
And if I could add to that, we've also considered that co-locating both facilities on the same site would have significant benefits to both facilities, and tick a lot of boxes in terms of community, national, international exposure, partnerships and everything else. So we've had that discussion about co-locating and sharing facilities and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I just add to that as well? I mean, my company's actually doing the Hawke's Bay bit, but I just wanted to say that if I were you, I would be suggesting that together they are so much stronger than apart. And I went to the Spark presentation, and if you can co-locate and you can share operational expenses, that is definitely the way to go. And certainly from a central government point of view, they're interested in councils using their resources effectively. So I would be suggesting that's a good thing to do.
We've spent quite a bit of time on other issues discussing putting everything in one place.
And
the cost efficiencies thereof.
Yes.
So that piece of land, just for the new councillors, and a previous council, was the piece of land past the golf club. I think we call it Section 7, opposite Owen Delaney Park. It's sort of earmarked for. That's what the track we're progressing down. My question is, if there's no other questions at the moment, my question is, when you're looking at these PPPs and obviously there's a bit of a trend there, like a third I can see sort of trending in there. Does the value of the land get taken into account, or only the cost of the building itself?
The value of the land does get taken into account. So, but what the problem with the value of the land is, if the PPP is owned by a trust, so in the example of the ice rink, if the council were to allow that land to be used at, say, peppercorn rental, but the council still owned that land, they'd take into consideration the fact that council was allowing the land to be leased at peppercorn rental, so that would be a tick. But because the land is not being gifted to the trust and it's not owned by the trust, it's still owned by the council, it wouldn't be seen as much of a contribution as if you were to put in cash. I guess that's a...
So if we just deliberated and thought about it,
yes,
there's actually in the financials there could be a benefit of actually giving that land to the trust.
Yes.
And its value would be connected to our third input.
Yes.
Consideration.
Yes, that's correct.
Further questions from councillors?
Yes.
Williams.
What sort of, with regard to usage, what sort of numbers would you seek using this facility per annum?
That's another good question. We haven't completed a detailed feasibility study yet. We just haven't had the resources to do it. We've collected bits of the information that will eventually go into a detailed feasibility study, but at this point we haven't got to that stage. Yeah.
Well, I guess my concern is that for such an expensive facility and outside of a main area, you'd really have to be able to justify the numbers.
That's right.
And I know that we have had a few ventures here in the past where that just hasn't happened, and because we're just so far from having the base of a major city.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was one of the interesting things that we learnt when we travelled the South Island and went to places like Gore with a population of significantly less than here, with an ice rink that is just chocker. It's thriving, and you go to a place like Naseby with a population of 120 people, and they've got a world-class curling rink which held the World Masters Games and is full as a bull. Like there's a lot of around and although they're in different parts of the country and they have slightly more alpine cultures, with our visitor industry here and with the size of the population that we've got, and also the fact that we would be the only ice rink or an ice facility between Auckland and Christchurch, there's a huge regional pull potential by having it there. So although we haven't got the numbers around it, we aren't concerned about. We're actually very confident that the numbers, in terms of use, both locals, schools, especially when you look at the survey we've done of the local schools, and the regional pull, we're pretty confident that it'll be fine. For example, there's ice hockey teams from Tauranga which travel to Auckland weekly right now, and simply because that's the only place they can go. So automatically we would be able to establish in Vaupini Waikato a new sport, if you like, and that's only one of the sports. So.
Just following on from what Councillor Williams was saying, in regards to the numbers, I can understand you've done a full feasibility of the study at the stage. In some ways, scale-wise, McLaren Park, is it, and Napier is comparable, similar model. So what sort of revenue is that generating in terms of income?
McLean Park. It's not nice. You know what McLean Park is? It's rugby and okay. I can't tell you that because I don't know. You'd have to talk to Napier City Council about that. I just came in as a consultant, pulled the money together, and then I leave. So I'm not sure about that. You'd have to talk to. But it's a very well used and successful park. I know.
I'm just trying to look for a model.
Yeah. I can organise to get some figures to you if you like from Napier City Council if that would be helpful. Happy to do that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Rob, what responses have you had from perhaps the national bodies in terms of perhaps ice skating, curling, hockey, you know?
Yep, that's a good question as well. When we did our travels around South Island and those other major facilities, just even within those facilities there was a huge amount of interest and they were all very supportive. New Zealand's getting to a stage now where it's one ice rink off being able to attract significant international ice events, such as world ice hockey champs. May only be juniors or other age classes, but those types of things we just don't quite have enough facilities. So we were getting a huge amount of support from the existing facilities. But also from the New Zealand Ice Hockey Federation. They have been really supportive, giving us as much information as they can around how to go about it, how to design it, what you need, what standards are, etc. Been really supportive. The New Zealand Curling Federation also, the International Curling Federation have also been really supportive. They're very keen to see curling grow, and they think it's a fantastic idea. So huge support from the international bodies around those particular sports, and that's only two of the future sports. We haven't engaged with figure skating and those sorts of things yet.